everyone. Welcome back to the Nested Healing Podcast. I'm your host, Jess Odabashian, and today we're covering the topic of Enneagram and how people with trauma interact with the Enneagram. And we have our wonderful guests with us. We have Camilla Field.
So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Camilla Norman Field, and I am a professional coach, an integral coach. I'm also an Enneagram teacher certified in the Rizzo-Hudson method. And I'm also a founding member, board member of Nested Integral Coaching Constellation, which is how I found myself in this group today. I'm also a mother of two adolescent boys and someone who has been fortunate enough to find myself in different communities of learning and growing and healing. And I'm just someone who's deeply, deeply, deeply fascinated by the human condition and always looking for ways to wake up to reality, to accept reality, to work with reality, and to do so with others. Just understanding that while I can do my own work, doing the work with others is really where things get magical and amazing, and whatever aloneness I might feel at times disappears.
Wonderful. That was wonderful. Next, we have Milton Stewart.
Hi, I'm Milton Stewart. I am a Enneagram facilitator, podcast host, and a lot of other titles that we could go on. But what I do love about the Enneagram is the ability to dive in deep, to connect to other people deeply. I am a big proponent of relentless improvement. I feel that there's always something along this journey that allows us to grow and deepen our consciousness, deepen our healing, deepen our connectedness. And I'm also an NI2C board member now. So that's one of the reasons I am here as well. So I'm excited to be here. And thank you, Jess, so much for inviting me.
Thank you for coming. And finally, Laura Hooper.
Thanks. Laura Hooper, and also an integral coach. Camilla and I went to the same school, different times, but same school. Also do a lot of Enneagram facilitation, different spaces. And I think the word that Milton used that jumped out at me is depth. Really appreciate the depth that the Enneagram offers. And it's one of those things where I feel like I get to a place where I'm like, oh, this is as deep as it goes. And then a whole new layer comes. So I very much value that and the journey. And, as Camilla said, the being in community and doing this work together is such a gift. And I'm currently serving as a coach for one of the cohorts going through the repair program right now. So just glad to be included in the community and the programs.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for being here. Very happy to have you and have this conversation facilitated. Kind of open the conversation, start the flow of everything. I kind of had a question of what is Enneagram to you guys? Like, what does it mean to you? How do you guys connect to it?
I think that's a loaded question in so many ways because I've found the Enneagram to be so useful and helpful for me and people I love and the organizations I work with and the people I coach. It is just so powerful. So to me, the Enneagram represents it's such a beautiful journey. And Laura said this word earlier, so I'm not going to steal it, but you can still use it. But it is a map. It helps us to figure out more or less like the specific areas of where work needs to be done or where healing needs to occur. And so that we're not just meandering around wondering, is this mine to work on? Is this mine to work on? But it's really giving more of a pinpointed, like, oh yeah, this is the thing that you're going to have to uncover, work with, work through. And there's a lot of healing and growth in this area at the same time. So to me, that's the biggest part of what the Enneagram is to me. Yeah.
Yeah, to add to that, Milton, it's when I first encountered the Enneagram was for that coaching school that Laura and I went to, New Ventures West. And prior to the first class, we each had to buy The Wisdom of the Enneagram by Don Riso and Russ Hudson and find our type or discover our type, which was completely foreign to me. And as I was reading along, I come across the type 2, known as the helper, the nurturer, and I am overcome by both relief, because I'm like, okay, I've done the assignment. I can go to that first day. I've definitely found my home base, but also some humiliation as well, because holy moly, how is what I perceive to be my unique, authentic self, how can that be captured in a chapter in a book with such precision and such sophistication? And that humiliation, I think that that sense of kind of shame almost, rather than sort of going down that rabbit hole, because then the next invitation was to come to the first day of class and start to work with this material. It really just alerted me to where I wasn't in alignment with my deeper, truer self, and have this map, which I think is a perfect word, really be able to guide me and be able to discern between what was the personality, what was my ambassador, what was this interface that I was bringing into the world to be able to feel love, to feel safe, even to some degree feel some sovereignty, right? Sort of, it was a way to distance myself sometimes from experiences, and then also tap into what's my deeper being, what's my authentic self, who is that unique, special Camilla that's in there, that is the totality of my ancestors and the billions of experiences I've had since I first drew breath. And so the humiliation over time yielded to delight in being able to catch myself in the act, and realize that every time I was in my personality, that wasn't an opportunity to like berate myself, but it was another opportunity to wake up to my deeper being.
I'm just appreciating both of those responses. And I think there's this piece of the why behind everything. Like it's more and more, it's like everything we do makes so much sense, actually, even when it's not good for us, whatever it might be. It's like the Enneagram for me, it just is like, there's an absolute reason that you made that decision. There's a reason that thing that is from childhood that needs healed, you keep running from it, or you keep pretending it's not there. And I think it's just, it highlights the intelligence that we all have in us, definitely 9 different ways, but it is just such a gift to see the why behind, and see, for me, the way at least I approach it is such a, where's the goodness in it? Where's the intelligence? And it's not, you have this terrible thing about you, you must change. It's, as Camilla said, the essence, coming home to myself. And I think in so many ways, the Enneagram has brought me home to myself and keeps bringing me home to myself. Yeah.
Oh, that is wonderful. Wonderful definition. Kind of jumping into it, I kind of want to start kind of a free-flowing conversation, going back and forth. I think one of the center points that I really gathered from all the descriptions is how Enneagram acts as a mirror that reflects kind of how we can see ourselves in a way. Humans are very complex creatures, but we also have a simplicity to us, and I think Enneagram allows us to see that simplicity. And I think for people starting their healing journey, it's a not necessarily an easy tool, but it's a jumping off point. I want to kind of explore your guys' experiences with the jumping off point for you guys, maybe in a way, if you feel open to sharing.
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned in my last share, I mean, the jumping point off for me was like literally getting the book and finding my type and going from there. And then the beauty of stepping into this year-long professional coaching course with New Ventures West was learning all sorts of different methodologies and systems of being able to see oneself with rigor and compassion, right? Because here's the good news. There are a million ways to presence. And even in our introductions, walking around the lake, Milton, or being with your dog in nature, Laura, there's so many ways to come home to ourselves. And for many of us out there, we don't have a vocabulary, we don't have a structure or system. But what I have come to learn is that any system that is authentic and accurate as it relates to the human condition, there might be different vocabulary words or a different image. For the Enneagram, we have this beautiful shape of the circle and the triangle and the hexa that come together in this map. But for me, it was really that just initial, here's the Enneagram, see if you can find yourself. And to say that during that year, I was introduced to other systems and models and methodologies, but this is the one that kept calling me back. And this is the one that said, keep doing a deeper dive. And this is the one that said, yeah, go do a 5-year certification process with small children at home, and of which you have no time for. But it was this, not even a compulsion, but it was a little bit of like, who am I to do this work? Was kind of the ego wanting to keep me in that place of being fixed. And then a much louder voice saying, who am I not to do this work? And the Enneagram was just the vehicle, the imitation, the system that I kept turning back to. I kept coming to. I kept finding other people, to talk to about it with. And so I'm really grateful that I signed up for this coaching program.
Yeah, my jumping off was a bit different. I initially, it was also where I learned the Enneagram, was in the same coaching program at New Ventures West. And I thought I was a type 2 initially. And so I liked the Enneagram. I mean, I got the grief and the shame, which I'm sure we'll kind of get into, centers of intelligence and all that. But it didn't really take hold till I finished the program. And I thought, that book Camilla mentioned, I want to go back and study that. So someone that I went through the program with, we did a deeper dive. And as we went through each type and met weekly and just really started to make sense of everything, we got to type 7. This was a year later after kind of using the tool a little bit, but not really digging in. And I was, oh my gosh, I wanted to burn the book. I was so upset. I was so like, oh no, I'm this type. I'm a type 7. And it should have been a sign for me. It was the one type I did not want to be. Like any of the other types, fine, I can work with that. This was the one type I didn't want to be. And something hit in that moment of, no, Laura, this is your home base. It's kind of everything laid out there. This is the childhood story. This is all of it. And it was from that moment on that it was like, I can't put this down, because it literally saw me in a way that I couldn't see myself. And so it was, it just kept pulling me more and more. And similar, went to another school, the Narrative Enneagram, a couple other places as well. And so it just keeps showing me more and more. And there are still moments where I want to burn the book, but I can kind of usually hang in there and just be with whatever's showing up for me. And I haven't experienced too many other tools that provide that in the same way, provide the continued, like just all those layers I mentioned, right? Like there's just layer after layer, and you can't see the next layer until you get through one. And it's not even it's like sometimes fun, sometimes painful, but it's like a surprise waiting, and you have no idea what it's going to be. And then all of a sudden there's this whole new way of seeing the world, whole new way of seeing yourself, which it's endless. And I think that's, so I went from jumping off point to like much further, but that's been my journey up to this point, at least.
Yeah, I resonate deeply with both of you all. So my jumping off point, it was also from the wisdom of the Enneagram. I was stuffing my face full of food, as I tend to do. And I was with a group of friends, and somebody said, let's do this personality test. I was like, yeah, let's do it. I love these things, right? And I got my 2 letters, right the first time. And one of my friends started to read off the descriptions, like the first two paragraphs. And for the type 7 or every type in there, just the first two paragraphs are great. It's like the best things about you. Like, "Ah, yeah, keep going, keep talking about me. Yes." But then that third and fourth one, it's like shining a light in all the spaces where you're like, how in the world does this book know? And now it's like reading this to the people around me. And at that moment, I was like, well, I don't know about this. The first two, I was like, yeah, this is good. Second, third and fourth, I was like, I don't know about this, y'all, in front of everybody else. But inside, I knew. I said, oh my goodness. And when something, I would say as a 7, when something can quote unquote pin me down, where it's like, oh, that's hard truth. That's feeling. Now I'm intrigued like no other. And
Mhm.
so at the time I went to find every book, which it wasn't nearly as many books as it is now. I would say every podcast, but it was like one. But every resource I could find on the Enneagram. And so that took me down a journey of like really starting to just like work on myself and find out more things about myself. Also got really excited because when you first get excited, you want everybody in your like friend group to know, and then you mistype all of them, and then you're like, oh my bad. Years later, it's like my bad. I was just excited. I'm sorry. You might not be that type. Look into this one or these, But
Mm.
that's kind of led me down the journey, and then it's like I couldn't let it go, and so because it's done so much growth and healing for me, I just want to share that so much with people that I know and love. So, and people in general, like that's it's been a big part of my, I guess, jumping off story. And it's taken me to a lot of different modalities of growth because, you know, finding your quote unquote finding locating your type is not the end of it. It's like a lot of times like the beginning of the journey. It's like, oh man, seriously, I got a journey in the past and the future now to work on this stuff. Great. So yeah, that's kind of my story.
I wanna jump in there, Milton, because as I'm hearing you speak, there is this, and to your original question, Jess, at this jumping off point, like finding our type, or some people prefer to use the word point, right? On the circle, there's as many souls as there are in the world, or those number of points on this circle of which we are all from the same source, right? Just current manifestations of stardust. And recently I find that I'm using the word energy, right? Because like I've got some two energy, and I think it's really important to notice at this time, or to name at this time, that really we have all of it in us, right? We are, as you said, Jess, we are complex. There is no way that we can be distilled down to one number or one chapter. So there's both holding the importance of finding our home base, which is really speaks to where our suffering is, our primary suffering. Laura, you referred back to the childhood pattern part of the chapters that we're referring to. And yes, we're referring to sort of this wisdom of the Enneagram book. And to your point, Milton, there's so much great content out there right now. And there's some not such great content out there right now too. So, you know,
Mhm.
check with your belly to see if something's not, right? Don't believe everything you read. It does not make you a more interesting person. Um, but to say that, what the system is about is bringing us our curriculum, and the beauty of being able to explore all of the energies to sort of see where we have an abundance or an overabundance, right? An over reliance on a certain system, egoic system. And then where do we have some dearth, right? Where is there some opportunity to grow and develop and to lean into some yummy 5 energy or 8 energy or 4? So I just really want to bring that into the conversation, that for anyone who's listening who may be new to this, or a little bit like, I'm not a number, like, yeah, you're not a number. Nobody's a number. And this is when we find our home base, there is this, as you've now heard from 3 people, this like, yay, but no, wait, what? So, um, and and yeah, notice that, and then know that this is the beginning of not even a linear journey. This is spiral, this is spherical, this is, yes, at times linear, this is sometimes just stand still on this one nugget, and you're going to hang out with that for a minute. So it's many things, and it's not. I think the simplicity you're talking about, Jess, is yes. There's sort of there is a simplicity of humanity, and it's when we're in all the complexities, that's when we're a little bit missing the point. And what I think the Enneagram does, like, we've got to get into all this complexity to understand the totality of us, to get back to the elegance, the simplicity of our deeper being, of our true nature.
Glad that's recorded.
Doing this in community, people. Doesn't come without you all there.
I kind of had a follow-up kind of question for like people who aren't really familiar with Enneagram. Like, because you guys kept talking and like numbering, like let's say types or numbers or points. For those who aren't familiar, like how would you explain that to them? Like, what are those in terms of Enneagram?
Milton, I'm tapping you first.
I was going to tell Laura first.
Right?
This is it's interesting. So sometimes when I teach it, because there's a part of my brain that wants to be like, there's so much here, but then it's like that's not how you get into a person's brain. You find a way to connect it to something else they already understand, and then you can go from there. So a lot of times if I'm teaching it, depending on the person, I may sometimes connect it to understanding why you do what you do, why you feel the way you feel, why you think the way you think, and why you behave the way you behave. And it's understanding the motivation behind it so that we can actually do something about it, acknowledge it, and see what's there first and foremost. Like I think that's kind of where I start sometimes, just to help people figure out like, oh, this is what the Enneagram is, leading us to. And then I'll go from that space to explaining that there are 9 types, typically 9 motivations of why people do what they do, why people feel the way they feel, why people act the way they act. And so from there, just kind of giving them a broader lens of like, these 9 types are all ways that we have figured out ways to try to survive in this world, but it can be distorted from the true essence and nature of who we truly are. Right. And so growing up, and this is a heady answer to the, but growing up, we develop survival techniques. There's a certain way, each type has a way of, I can survive if I show up like this. And long as like we're able to do that thing, we feel like I can survive. And so it's really helpful when we're younger. A lot of times it keeps us to a degree safe, in our feeling of safe or whatever that may be, maybe in our family structure, maybe growing up. But as we grow older and we start to have more autonomy and our brain develops more, there's more to us. So usually I just hit on those like core areas of why we do what we do, and then helps us understand how can we work on those things. And there's 9 different ways that it operates within the world. So yeah, that's how I try to keep it simple. And so I'm gonna let Laura and Camilla jump in, um, to land the plane maybe a little bit better than that explanation.
Actually,
That was
really, yeah,
that was a great start, Milton.
it
Like,
was. I
yeah.
appreciate that because I think, as you said, I can, we share a type, so I get that. Like, here's everything, and that is often not the way to go. So, like, just so appreciating where's this person? Let's figure out their motivation. Let's tailor what we're doing to this individual sitting in front of me or this group of individuals. So very similar for me. And I know today we're here to talk trauma a bit and kind of weaving the Enneagram and trauma together. And I would say with most of my work, even individual coaching clients, most people come to me because of some sort of trauma, whether it's recent or something from the past. And that is often the inroad for me is, okay, some of the language I use is, around internal alarm system. We all have them. Our brain wants us to stay alive. So what's your alarm system? What was your response to this trauma, to this big event? And if we can start to pull that apart and see like what makes so much sense that this is how you responded. And I often start with, Enneagram is a system of 9. And so it's often grouped into sets of 3 triads. We use all different language for it, but the most common triads are the centers of intelligence, at least in my opinion. And it's a really important place to start and understand what's the core motivation underneath, as Milton said. When my alarm system goes off, what am I experiencing? And then we can really get to things. And probably part of the reason why that for me feels so important is in many ways to look at 3 different things. It's easier than 9 to start. And for me, it was so important. I spent the first 32 33 years of my life not knowing my head was connected to my body, like really living everything from here. Some in my heart. I'm sorry, I'm on a podcast. I'm pointing to my head, but so much of how I was making sense of the world and experiencing myself was from this head. I didn't really have connection to my heart or to my belly. And those are the three centers: your head center, your heart center, your belly center. And everybody has all three. But your type, your main home base, the place that you operate from most, the place that you're the most skilled at, I would say, your go-to strategies reside, is that center of intelligence, is the place where you make sense of the world. And to use the word Milton used, also you distort the world from there. So getting that paradox is huge. And for me, such a relief of like, all these things are true at once. Like, whoever's standing in front of me, right? They're an amazing human and they have shadows. I'm an amazing human and I have shadows. And that was just, I think the Enneagram just continues to remind us of that. And yeah, there's 9 different ways in which we show up with these gifts, with these shadows. And to Camilla's point, I mean, it's actually way more than 9. 9's a nice way to categorize it, but there's as many points on the circle as there are humans. So
Yeah. I thank you both for, I'm glad we're recording this, is what I will say. I'm going to circle back to some of these when I'm meeting with a new client. And it's interesting. So I lead with a 2 energy, and the 2s and the 7s. One of the ways that we are connected is that we're all positive outlook. So we have this way when stress comes our way, which can mean all sorts of things. Like when there's any kind of external stimuli, we sort of come back with like, it's going to be great, so I'm just sensing that connection with all of you and the joy in this topic and conversation. And I'm also going to pause and pull back to just look at the word Enneagram. Ennea is Ennea, and it means 9. And then gram is a model, right, or system. So while it is that as its simplest form, I love what you're both bringing in here with the centers of intelligence and really that piece of integration, Laura, of how we're showing up in the world. And then the part where like, no, don't look too closely. It's fine. Just look away, Superman, and that shadow piece and this opportunity to integrate ourselves. One of the ways I sometimes introduce the Enneagram with clients or at the cocktail party, or really with anyone who is interested in having a conversation with me about the human condition, is asking them like, well, do you have siblings, or do you have more than one kid? And I have a sister, and I have 2 boys, and 19 and 16 now, and they just showed up with their own little nature, right, with their own way of being. And we're learning more and more about even what's packed into that nature, and understanding, not to go on a tangent, but sort of ancestral traumas or ancestral experience or epigenetics. So even within that nature, there are generations back that have happened and existed and procreated to have you show up in the world and have your special little sauce manifest in a corporal state. And then there's also that nurture piece, which is all of the things that happen to us from the first moment we draw breath. Like my older son, he was in distress in the birth canal, right? Like his birthing story was different than his younger brothers, which was a lot calmer and more relaxed. And even in utero, they were different. My older son, who leads with a 6 energy, he was constantly on the move. There was just so much activity. And then with my younger son, who leads with a 1 energy, there would be periods of stillness when I thought something might be wrong. There was just like a qualitative difference between the 2 of them before they even drew breath. And then they come out into the world, and there's all the things that happen to us. So I also want to touch on this word trauma, since that's part of what we're talking about today. Trauma can mean a great many things. It can be big T trauma, it can be little t trauma, but it's really when we have an experience where we disconnect from ourselves. And it can be the first time you cry out for your mother's milk, and for whatever reason, she can't be there. She's busy with another kid. She's down in the hallway doing this. She didn't hear you. She was asleep. Maybe she's not even present in your life at all, and there's someone else who's providing nourishment to you. I mean, there's so many moments, but this notion of trauma happens early and happens often, and it's not something to it's not something that I'm almost thinking like a heavy weighted blanket that sort of allows you not to draw breath. It's actually all these experiences that become points of our curriculum as we're moving forward in our lives. And if there's something we need to learn and something we need to integrate, the universe will provide. She, he, however you want to call it, God, Allah, Yahweh, like whatever you ascribe to that makes sense for you in terms of how this world came to be and what our place is in it. All of these experiences are opportunities to learn, to integrate, and to return to wholeness, to return to that oneness that's the origin story, whatever that one is for you. So just wanted to name that trauma piece early, and also just to name that we are a true combination of our nature, our ancestral nature, and all the things that happen to us from whenever our life begins.
Sorry, I'm just kind of taking all of that in. I think it's also important to kind of go over for people who are listening, what are like heart centers, what are head centers, what are body centers, belly centers, what does that mean? I feel like sometimes they might not know like what we're referring to. It's kind of like my fear. So it's like, what's right there? So
Well, interestingly enough, there's 3 of us here, and there's 3 centers of intelligence. So I would be happy to jump in with the belly center, and we can just kind of go around if that works. That way, everybody can hear all our voices, and I love to hear other people's take on it and their approaches. So, yeah, there are 9 types, and there are 3 types with a home base in each center of intelligence. The way I often teach this or facilitate, I start in the belly center. And that's kind of top of the Enneagram. So types 8, 9, and 1 sit in the belly center. And literally sometimes like put my hand on my belly. I'm like, hey, this is this place. This is my body. This is, how do I sense? How do I sense into the world? These are the types that really make sense of the world through their body, through their instincts, through their, where am I in this moment? And I mentioned alarm system earlier. That's also kind of how I approach things. So for the belly center of intelligence, what they want is autonomy. They want power. They want their own. They want to take care of themselves the way that they want to. Right? It's like don't come in my boundaries, essentially. And when they can't do that, when their autonomy is threatened, when their power is threatened, the emotion that comes up for them is anger or rage. And there's such an intelligence in that. We need to know if my boundaries are crossed, I need to be able to push back on that. And so this is a lot of what 8, 9, and 1 come to teach us is how do we maintain our own dignity, our own power. And of course, that can go any number of ways. It can be overdone. But each of the 9 types come to teach us something, come to help us learn about the world. They have their gifts. So I'll dig in just a little bit to each of those because it's very different energetically. You'll kind of see this pattern throughout. Within each center of intelligence, the energy is different of the 3 types that lie in there. So type 8 is, we all often call them the challenger. There's all sorts of different names. Sometimes it's actually almost better to stay with the number so that the label doesn't kind of, the word doesn't land in a way that makes you think something, right? So I try to stay with the numbers a lot, but there's the thing to know about type 8 is they come into the world to teach us about aliveness, to teach us about immediacy. There is this, I'm here world, I'm here, and their energy expands. They have a lot of assertive energy, kind of remind all the rest of us why we need to be alive and really live into life. And then their next door neighbor, type 9, sometimes call them the peacemaker, the mediator. They sit at the top of the Enneagram. And so I always think of this like they can really see how much everybody matters, how much everybody belongs. And they have this gift for seeing that and making sure everybody's part of. And that's a much calmer energy often, not always, but there's more of a withdrawn energy in a type 9. And then the last one in the belly center is type 1, the idealist or the reformer. I've got a soft spot for type 1s. My partner's a type 1. These are the folks that like just are tuned into like goodness to rightness, there is just often such an uprightness about type ones. You know, when I first started dating my partner, he said something about, you know, I just kind of live in this, leave everything better than I found it. And it was like a simple thing, but it was like, oh, and that is often what we see on the high side of the type one. I could keep going. As you can tell, I love the Enneagram. So I'll stop there. That's our belly center. Yeah.
Thanks, Laura. If you're okay with that, Milton, I'll continue around the horn with heart types. And just want to make sure, one clarification. Again, I'm conscious of the fact that we're in an audio format, but you sort of think about, if you're thinking about the belly and the heart and the head, the belly would be, you know, at the bottom, right? And the heart's in the middle and the head's at the top. But when you're looking at the shape of the Enneagram, the actual model of the Enneagram, the body types are at the top of the circle, right? The 8, 9, and 1. And for those of you out there who are like, why aren't we starting at 1? All shall be revealed, but just don't let yourself get hung up on the fact that we're starting with the 8. There's rhyme and reason to it, and if you don't get that right now, that's okay. So just be okay.
Thank you, Camilla. I appreciate you.
For sure.
Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you.
just I'm sort of trying to think about when I first saw this thing. So, but let us move into that heart center, and also to say, as I alluded to earlier, we have all energies within us. We all have a body, you know, belly center. We all have a heart center. We all have a head center. And if you don't have one of those, then you're not able to communicate because you're not actually alive. So just to say, we have all of them in us. And there is one that is our home base. And I've heard this before, which really resonates. It tends to be the center of intelligence where we have the most resources. Like we're like, I know this, I got this, I feel this, I vibe with this. And it's also where we can have the most kind of contraction. It can be where we get trapped most easily, right? Because when we're only operating from one center, we're not in a place of wholeness. We're not in a place of integration, which is why it's so important to step into all the energies, because when we're actually connected to the entire system, that's when we can respond skillfully to life rather than reacting poorly from our fixed type, right? In that contracted place. So as I said earlier, I lead with the 2 energy. The heart center is the 2, the 3, and the 4. Similar to what Laura said, you know, they're all heart center types, which is okay. What does that mean? Does it mean that we feel more than other types or have a higher EQ than other types? Nope, that's not what it means at all. But it means that what we're primarily concerned with is connection. Those mirror neurons, if you want to talk, you know, neurology for a minute, it's that part of the brain that's like, are you with me? Do you feel me? Do you get me? You know, I, as a leading with the 2, when I'm watching a funny movie, I'm watching the movie, but I'm also like, are you laughing with me? Are you with me? Did you get that? Are you enjoying this experience? And wanting that connection and understanding in terms of our species, right? There's like, we need one another. We are social primates. There is a desperate need that when we're first born, that our mother and father or parents, whatever form that is for you, which can be in many, many forms, that those protectors and nurturers recognize you, meet you, see you, respond to you, right? That's the part of us that a baby cries and someone can respond to that and attune to that and make that child feel connected and safe and loved and all those things that we need to not only survive, but really to thrive. So the 2 is known as the carer, the nurturer. This is a type, I said earlier, it's like a positive outlook type, which is also the 9. This is a type that is oriented towards service. Like, how can I help you? What do you need? I'm here for you. There's a sense of kind of duty and compliance. But for me, how I experience this is just this knowing, without knowing how I know this, I know what you need. I can anticipate your needs. I can respond to those needs. And I love being able to be of service to you and be helpful to you, right? So there's this beauty in the 2 that it just has this natural caregiving quality, this nurturing quality to it that is really beautiful. And again, to name, all other 8 types are also can be nurturing and caring, but it's not as inherently tied to this piece of, the internal alarm systems and who do I need to be in the world to be safe, to be loved, to be cared, all the things that are part of the human experience. So the 2 is that. The 3 is a different flavor of this connection. It's the 3s are really here to teach us about authenticity. They're really here to teach us also about our intrinsic value. At the heart of the 3, and I use that language intentionally, they are here to teach us that we matter simply for drawing breath. That there is nothing we need to do to be worthy of our love, right? And so the 3s they're the ones who are the incredible, like, cheerleaders and like, you got this and just do it. And they're the ones who can see value in others in a way that can really help people grow and develop. And there's like the be all that you can be, that sort of army slogan. They're the ones who are really here to help us understand our potential, our value, and to do that in a way that's really authentic to our own deep nature and deeper being. And then the 4, did I say actually the 3 known as the achiever, the 4 known as the individualist, sometimes known as the artist. Their energy is kind of in and down. They're the ones who are primarily occupied with beauty, with being able to show us what's unique, what's like, and not like in a surfacey way at all. So yeah, they can show us that beautiful sunset, but they can also show us like that gnarly weed that's growing out of the concrete that nobody else noticed or paid attention to, but they can understand like the architecture of that little tiny weed has beauty in and of itself, right? So they're the ones who are here to teach us how to pause, to pay attention, to drink in the bounty of the beautiful world around us. And so the way that the heart center types are operating, like the 2 is doing it in a way like, how can I be of service to you and in a compliant energy? And the 3 is like kind of up and out and be like, you're amazing and you're amazing, you're amazing, and like, and really helping us understand like the potential in all of us. And the 4 is this little quieter energy. You gotta kind of get a little closer to them. They want to draw you in and say, hey, did you notice that little thing over there that no one else paid attention to? That was worthy of our appreciation, that was worthy of our love and connection. Anytime you'll hear anyone talk about any of the types, you'll hear different versions every single type, which is part of what I love about this. So Laura would describe the heart centers in a different way, Milton too, but that's my flavor of the heart center types. Milton, what you got?
Yes, thank you, Camilla. I love what you said last, because it's so interesting. I could describe a type every time I describe it differently to a different group, every single time, just about because there's something else that pops up. I'm like, oh yeah, I want to share about that. So when we talk about this, the head center of intelligence, we're talking about types 5, 6, and 7. And there's a certain way that these types orient the world, a little bit different than the body types and the heart types. And so the body types are oriented from the gut space of understanding what's going on from that space. Heart types, obviously, the heart space, relationally, what's going on. And then the head types are out here trying to figure out what the world is going on. How do I use this brain to either prepare for what could happen or to figure out what's going on? Or how can I create a future and somehow would be something I would like to be in, right? Or to be prepared for it. So it's a really interesting type who tends to deal with a shared emotion that shows up a little bit more, I would say, it's behind more of what they do, behind their thinking mind, which is fear. Like as said before by Camilla, everyone has fear, and fear shows up in many different ways. But for head types, there's a lot of times of fear around, can I, with my mind, figure out what I need to either figure out, what I need to prepare for, what I need to plan for, how can I plan for it? And so there's a lot of thinking and anticipatory what's going on and what could happen and how can I try to be prepared for it. And so sometimes that overthinking for head types is, we've talked about before, it can be such a beautiful gift, but it also can be a place where these types can get trapped. Is a lot of the overthinking is that sometimes the mind is so far in the future and the body and the heart are not there necessarily. And so that a lot of times can cause a form of anxiety. So even though every type can have anxiety, five, six, and sevens have a unique, I would say, relationship with anxiety sometimes, right? And it manifests in three different ways depending on their type structure, um, and also, personal things in life. So when we talk about the five, sometimes they call them the investigator. And what I like about that title for them is fives like to figure out, why in the world are we here? What is going on? Can I break it apart and figure out all the little components for it? And how in the world does it make up the whole thing? And so, one of the beauties that fives bring to the world, and a lot of our Enneagram knowledge, deep knowledge, comes from quite a few fives, is because they don't mind diving and researching into the depths and then finding a way to simplify it so that common people can understand it before they dive in deeply into it themselves. They find a way to find all the mechanics of it. And what they love is that they love to figure it out. Some of us love to figure it out so we can get to the answer or to solve the problem, but they actually like the process of figuring it out, which is such a beauty, which is such a gift, because there's so many things in this world. If we don't really break them apart, think about them, we'll miss so much, right? And so fives help us to put those pieces together. And a lot of times fives need more of their own energy and time to themselves, because a lot of times to really think through something, they want to really connect the pieces inside of their brains. And so they need space and time to do that. So a lot of times they may want a little bit more secluded time for themselves, I would say, just because they really like to think through. And they also, a lot of times, are very cautious about how their energy is being used. Type sixes, when we talk about type six and how they use their head space, it's in their head center, it's a lot around preparation. How do I prepare for what could happen, right? And make sure that if something could happen, I can figure it out beforehand and be prepared and ready for it so that something bad hopefully will not happen. So a lot of times sixes are trying to figure out in what ways and how can I do all the things that I need to do to prepare for if something happens. So I kind of say that sixes thinking is algorithm. If this, then that, if this, then that, if this, then that. And so they're kind of preparing for all the different potential outcomes, even though the percentages of some of those outcomes may be very small. The fact that their brain went there, they're like, hey, maybe we should plan for this. So hopefully things will definitely go well. So with that, sixes have this beautiful way of really, really diving into the details of what could happen and then really having time to prepare and plan for them, and then being able to share that with the world and share that with people. And so it's such a beautiful thing because they can see things a lot of times people cannot see when it comes to the creation of something. It comes to the being of something. It comes to the thinking of something. I think one of the greatest gifts sometimes that may get overlooked for the six is when everyone is like on board. It's like, yeah, this is the thing to do. Six is like, well, have we thought about this? What about this? What if this? Because sometimes in life, things make sense if you don't think about them. What I mean by that is sometimes we can be asleep to certain things. And sometimes sixes are like, I think we should wake up and I have a question, because I don't think we caught everything that is actually going to be a part of making this either successful or maybe safe, maybe secure, because that's another big motivator. One of the biggest motivators for them is, can we provide safety and security for self and those around us? So that's one thing about the six. As far as the seven, we talk about using the head, their head center. We're talking about a type that thinks in the future and thinks in a way of how can we make things the best that they can be, positive they can be, fun as they can be, exciting as they can be, stimulating as they can come. So we're talking about a type who is envisioning a future in a way that can be positive, in a way that could be uplifting. Of how can we bring these things together, no matter what has happened, no matter the tough things we went through, no matter the bad things, the sun is still going to rise. And so, how can we be a part of making sure that we have a vision of things that could be possible and positive, um, and bring those things to the world and share their joy with the world? And so, that's part of the way that the seven interacts and sees the future. And it's like, despite whatever goes on, that may have been bad, sad, can hold you down, those things don't have to continuously hold you down. It don't have to continuously weigh you down and weigh you back. There's always a way. There's always a way to still invoke positivity, joy, gratitude, and excitement into the lives that we have. And so those are three different flavors of how the head types kind of show up. Now, all of them do have their challenges with obviously using their head center so much. Fives maybe sometimes secluding themselves, not being there physically in their bodies because they're purely in their head and missing out on engagement. And then sixes maybe sometimes going back and forth so much where they're not sure, can struggle to have some certainty, even if they thought about it a lot and they wrote it down and they prepare for it, still not feeling certain when they come into their own courage around doing things. And then for sevens, a lot of times it's so much preparation for the future and so much excitement that sometimes it can be an overabundance of staying there and not dealing with sometimes the harder things in life that needs to be giving attention to so that it can heal, so it can grow, and to be there with other people in those moments as well. So that's a little bit around the head types.
Jess, before we move on, I wanted to, you made me think about a bunch of things, but just in the interest of brevity, because I know we've only got so much time, although I know we could talk forever. Going back to the heart center, I realized I missed the chance to share that sort of connected emotion. Like Laura spoke to the rage or the anger, and Milton spoke to the fear and the anxiety. And with the heart center types, it's it's both actually, but it's shame, and it also can be grief. And what I mean by that is, in Milton, again, at the end, you talk so beautifully about all the gifts and what they all do and what they all bring, and then like where they get caught, right? So the two, for all of its desire to be helpful, sometimes forgets to help themselves, right? And this martyrdom can come, and there's a self rejecting almost that can happen, and they don't take care of themselves, and then there's resentment, like all the things I do for you, and that kind of energy. Like, talk to me around Christmas time and I'll tell you all about how that looks. And the three, in all of their desire to meet and find the potential in all of us, they sometimes forget their own intrinsic value and can show up in a way where they are sending out their best ambassador, right? Because there's an attachment to achieving and to success, and there's a disconnection with the self, which is really what's happening, right? When we're in our personality, we're disconnected from our deeper being. And so there can be a little bit like, no, the fish was this big. No, it was this big. Like, how big is the fish got to be for you to love me and want to be in relationship with me? And then the four, in their own way, they're called the individualists, right? And there's this longing to be seen as unique and individual, and this bright, shining, only star in the universe that looks just like this and acts like this and expresses themselves in this way. But underneath all of that is like a deep longing for belonging. And when they feel outside of it, and it's like, yes, all those points on the circle are unique expressions. And we're also all on the one circle, right? So both are true. We are one and we are also unique. And so the shame comes from how I'm showing up is not connected to my deeper being. So I know that what I'm selling you is my ambassador, the version of myself I think I need to be to get the love that I am longing for, the sense of connection, and you're meeting me and you're with me. And the grief really comes from this, the heartbreak of that, meeting the heartbreak of disconnecting from ourselves, right? So I just wanted to circle back with that, because if some more of our discerning listeners like, well, I heard about the rage and I heard about the fear, like Camilla missed that part. I just wanted to name the shame and the grief that can come with the heart center. Thank you for that.
Sure. Thank you for sharing. Thank you all guys for explaining it so beautifully and perfectly and wonderfully. Milton, I'm a type 6. I'm a 6.5, so I'm like right in anxiety and fear zone. I think it's really funny, and if you guys want to share too, that'd be really fun. But when I think of like my anxiety or my fear when I'm thinking of my type, I know you guys know Inside Out 2 came out, and they have those kind of like represented and everything. And have you seen the memes of like, this is my anxiety and it's Pepe from the Muppets? I know it's very specific, but I feel like that is my. He lives in my brain, specifically Pepe from Muppets in Space. Specifically that Pepe. But you guys have like an image of like what yours is, I feel like that would be a fun kind of getting ready to close out soon kind of question. I'll ask a couple more, but I figured that was a good one to start with, which is like in your head, what is kind of represents that for you? For me, it's Pepe.
So I used to use haven't done it much, but I use a golden retriever sometimes to um and we won't get into this on this episode, but I've got to say it because it is like since we're going there, to describe my self-preservation instinct, which has anxiousness around me getting what I need resource wise. And so for me, I just kind of imagine a German Shepherd and me being able to make sure that, like, hey, don't be over there in these people's food and going first and getting aggressive because you can't get what you want. Relax, sit, lie down. I'm okay. I'm actually surviving right now. Let's take a breath. So for me, it's more of a German Shepherd, but I have created different parts of myself at different points of my growth to help me, I would say, be aware, create space for it, but also not overly attach it to myself. So all three kind of in one way. But yeah, a German Shepherd. Yeah, I just kind of petted it by like randomly just a second ago, but it's okay. Yeah.
I'll go next because it's probably helpful. Like this is one of the places where you can see the difference. Milton and I are both working with type 7, but my dominant instinct is sexual or one-to-one. And I've not really thought of it this way, but it's oh my gosh, it probably, like, I can feel this as I'm about to say it. Probably really is a child in a candy store. It is this, oh, that candy looks so good, but I want that candy and that candy. And it's this, when I'm really, as Camilla said, like disconnected from myself, when I'm really in my personality, almost all of my energy is out to what is the next candy I can get. And that's going to taste better than the one I have right now. And I wish this pattern was broken, and I'm glad it's not because it's part of me. But there is just this almost this insatiability of wanting to be stimulated like all the time. It can just be ideas, it can be anything. And so much so, exactly what Milton said when he was talking about type 7, so much so that I'm somewhere else that's not even this moment. And so it's when I get that sensation of a child in a beautiful candy store. I mean, the candy store is gorgeous, all sorts of colors. But when that sensation comes up for me, that is such a like, oh, what's going on? What's actually here, and what's here in front of me, not the candy over there. Yeah.
It's a fun question, Jess, and I love hearing each of you talk about how to imagine this internal part of you and how it shows up. So as you were all talking, I don't know if you're familiar with a woman named Amma, the hugging saint, and she is a real life person, and literally she travels around the world and people line up for miles just to get a hug from her. And I've often, I sort of joke with not joke, actually, I'm not joking. I'm very serious. Like I would just love to wear a t-shirt that just says free hug. And energetically I do, because the amount of times I will meet a perfect stranger and I will just attune that that person right now is just needing my love, needing my presence. And I think that's sort of the beauty of what I really love about the two-ness in me is like, I will find that thing worth loving in you, even and especially if you can't see it for yourself. Now, to include myself in that equation, that's my work, right? That is the work of the two energy. But as you were talking about like the German Shepherd, like I'm imagining like an older golden retriever who's just there, who's just loving you, who is not making any demands, who, whether you leave for 10 seconds or 10 years, that little pup is going to be there, just not puppy energy, right? But just this sort of steadiness of I am here for and with you. And I have this sort of narcissistic notion that with some of our most hurting people that we see in the world, and I can think about some elections coming up, and I think like, God, just give me an hour with that person. I will just love them into wholeness. I will just hug them into wholeness. And my husband's like, could you not? That doesn't seem terribly safe, right? Like you also, he's self-preservation, and he's like, how about if you don't hug everyone that you meet all the time? And I'm like, but this is my jam. Like this is what I'm here to do. So, but yeah, Alma the hugging saint is like she's my hero, really.
I love that. I love that kind of representation. It's so, it's so nice. Yeah. I think another question I have kind of in mind, it's kind of like, it kind of pertains, it kind of doesn't. It's a weird question that came into my mind that was just, I've been crocheting a lot and knitting a lot, and I'm trying. In my brain, I've been connecting kind of like the chain aspect of the Enneagram and what it looks like. Most likely, we'll throw a model in sometime, probably in the beginning, probably now, of like what it looks like. And I was thinking, I was like, I feel like every single one of these like Enneagrams would, like, if they would crochet or knit, would knit something different. If you guys do knit or had an ability to knit, kind of a fun question. What would you knit? For me, I love this poncho. This poncho is like, it's for my grandma. It's family. I'm type 6. Type 6 are like loyalists. So for me, it's very like any heirloomy type thing I like treasure. And so for me, I feel like that's kind of what this represents. Do you have something you would either knit or have had like a gift given to you that's kind of similar in value, that like attribute kind of similar to your I don't want to say number, but type? I know it's a silly question, but
Fun
Well,
question.
I for me, it would be the most comfortable, like the most comfortable, the finest quality material I could find, um, that would cover my whole body. It would be like a Snuggie, but 10 times better. Um, so that would be mine.
Mine would be, I'm like giggling because anyone that's watching the visual of this, like you can see the wallpaper behind me. Like I like a lot of color. I like the thing I love about this, it's a very floral pattern. Like it's just popping with color, lots of different flowers. And I've had it for a couple years and I still stare at it and find something new. And I actually recently started really getting back into sewing, and I just made a dress that has all these beautiful whales on it. But if you look really close, there's this little girl. She looks like she's from the 50s or something. She's got this swimming cap and she's like hanging on to the whales in all different poses. So I'd be knitting something that had hidden treasures that like I would forever keep finding, or people around me would keep finding. And I can feel the excitement even thinking about it. So yeah, some sort of extra fun would just be like sprinkled throughout my poncho or whatever it was that I made.
We are so exactly who we are. It's not even funny. So here's my reveal, which is, as you started talking about, your poncho, Jess, which is really beautiful, and I'm actually feeling a little bit chilly. So if I could borrow that, that would be great. If you could throw that through the interwebs. But the first thing that came to me is like, well, I would probably crochet a heart-shaped like pot holder that I would give as a gift. And wouldn't that be great? Because that would protect you from getting hurt. And it's also a heart. So it's like, love you. And, but it wouldn't be for me. Like that's like, so here I am doing the two. So, but it would definitely be heart shaped. The sheer number of things that are heart shaped in my life is yeah, obvious and on the nose and true. It's a shape that I am drawn to because of what it represents. So yeah, expect those in the mail for the holidays.
thank you guys all for being here and showing up, and for informing people about Enneagram and all that fun stuff. And it's probably where we'll end the episode. So we're getting pretty close on time. Amazing episode. Thank you guys all for being here.
Jess, can I add one thing?
You can.
For now. And perhaps what I share will prompt Milton and Laura to share a little bit more too. So,
Mhm.
because I'm coming back to we're talking about the Enneagram, and either people are dipping their toe in, or they're already like in a plunge situation and they're already swimming in these waters. And I want to bring it back to nested integral coaching constellation, which is really working with people who've experienced interpersonal trauma, which is just a word for trauma when we're with other human beings, right? Like trauma when it exists of two or more people coming together. And I just want to bring it back to where the Enneagram can be so helpful in that is, as we've all been talking about, of understanding our internal alarm systems. We show up with this nature, and then all these things happen to us, and remembering that in childhood, we don't have agency. We are not in charge. And the things that are happening to us, we are, as Milton said earlier, we're just trying to find strategies for surviving, right? And some of them all of them are intelligent. Some of them are effective, and some of them are worthy of holding on to till our last breath. But where the Enneagram can be tremendously helpful and illuminating and instructive is helping us see some of those ways of feeling, of acting, of doing, of thinking, where the expiration date has come and gone. Like what kept us safe as children and helped us navigate an unknown world where we have no agency is now actually preventing us in adulthood from connecting to our deeper being, connecting to our true nature. And so the Enneagram is enormously helpful for me, is being able to see some of those patterns of behavior, patterns of emotional reactivity, thought patterns, right? The loops, right? What is it like of 100 conversations, 95 we have with ourselves, like being able to unravel those so that I am able to be connected to my deeper being, that I am able to integrate all of my gifts and the shadowy bits too, and put down some of those strategies for surviving that, thank goodness I have them, intelligent as all get out. They got me from point A to point B, and here I am now with all of you, but have run out. They've expired. They've served their purpose. It's time to put them down with gratitude, with appreciation, with awareness. And so I just wanted to bring that back, that since the work we're doing in this organization is creating these conditions for wholeness through coaching, through group work, through learning about different healing modalities, the Enneagram can be a really extraordinary tool to help us do that work around trauma.
I just thanks for that, Camilla. It was beautiful again. Not much to add other than the Enneagram is such an invitation towards wholeness, towards belonging to yourself, and what a gift. So I'd say if you're brand new to the Enneagram, just notice how this is landing for you, because all of that is such good information. One, of course, to help you towards finding what type might be home base for you, but more so just getting to know yourself in a whole new way. And that to me is the gift of the Enneagram and of this community and what this organization is offering.
And I like to use an analogy sometimes to help people, going right along with what you said, Camilla. And I use this analogy of like a car. And growing up, before you were able to have your license, you were old enough, your ego or personality may have been driving the car, doing its best to keep you safe. But now you're at an age where you're able to say, okay, pull over. You can get in the back seat or you can get in the passenger seat, but I need to drive because where you're taking me may not be the direction or the place I really want to go. And so when I'm in the driver's seat, I have the ability to actually have the reactions, have the responses, honor who I truly am, and really drive and direct my life in the place where I want to go and where it probably needs to go for a healthier sense, for growth, for healing through trauma that does happen, right? The ego or personality will be there and you can say, okay, I see you, I see what's coming up on the road, I'm driving, thank you for your input, and I'll take that into account when I make my decision. But I just think it's very important that as Camilla said, things expire. That way it's like, okay, I can drive my own car of life and honor my whole person, my whole body, my whole humanhood. And so that I can truly heal and go in the direction that I truly want to and need to for growth and for healing.
Amazing, all of you. Um, Thank you for all of those little end tidbits and everything. I don't know what to say. This episode has been amazing. Very enlightening. All of it. I'm excited to go back and watch it and edit it.
Well, and thank you for the opportunity. I mean, you're new to me, Jess, but Milton and Laura are people I've known and loved and had amazing experiences with in this last decade of my life. And I'm just really grateful to be in community and communion with all of you this morning. And as is evident to anyone listening, this is a subject, a topic, and a system that we all love and love to work with and love to invite others to work with too. But I just wanted to say thank you for including me in this. It's been a true delight.
Mhm.
Just grateful to be in this space. Yes, good call, Milt. Appreciating all of you. What a great way to start my Sunday.
That's right.